What's going on, YouTube fam? This is your boy J Money here, and I'm bringing you guys part 3 of how to mitigate the weakness of fragile deck strategies. Fragile deck strategies are all over the place. You know, on paper they seem to be really good. However, if they can get disrupted in any way, the turns can pretty much end from there. And you know, that sounds similar to normal summon reliant decks, but not all of these strategies rely on their normal summon. Some of them rely on a specific piece or a specific card to essentially go through. And if your opponent gets wind of what that card is, or already has knowledge of what that card might be, then you can be in for a world of trouble. So before I get into that, I want to go ahead and say that I got a PC a few days ago and all that stuff. Still had shitty internet. However, I did finally upgrade my internet to 1,000 megabytes per second internet and all the good stuff. But there's one huge downside that's going on right now. The house I'm living in is an old house, and so it can't handle where I'm at. You know, I'm downstairs in the basement, of course. It can't handle all of that power that the PC's putting out, unfortunately. And so it's causing all these brownouts downstairs, and it's really discouraging because it's like, okay, I can't have anything plugged in or any of that other stuff. I can't have anybody on the other side watching TV or any of that other stuff because, I mean, it'll just cause a brownout, and things will just disconnect and all that other stuff. So I don't know what to do there. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that I did get OBS streaming and all that stuff, so I'm still trying to work out all this stuff because this stuff is just such an alien concept to me. It's not even funny. And I finally figured out how to get, you know, the camera to display over on the side, but I'm still trying to figure out how to get the main screen capture to just only display one screen because it's showing like 7 different screens inside of each other. So I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. I can really use some people's help in the comments below because I do want to start streaming, but I need to solve this problem. Maybe I just need to get a better surge protector so this stuff doesn't start browning out. I don't know. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. I am going to start with I'm going to reference 3 decks for this video. One being this deck because I excel at it, because we all know the deck is fragile. But there's, you know, spirals. I'm going to do spirals as well because that's also a fragile strategy and all that goodness. No, go that way. Go that way. Oh my god. Alright, I'm back, guys. So, case in point, spirals. They don't rely on their normal summon, but they do rely on their double helix resolving. So if that double helix itself gets disrupted, then that can kind of, you know, you're left trying to pick up the pieces. And there is one more deck I want to mention, which surprisingly some people might be surprised about, but it's actually Goki's. Even before the Goblin hit, the deck strategy itself was fragile, but there are ways to mitigate that, and Goki's, the Goki deck excels at it, and it is something that I've actually said in my very first World Chalice video I've ever made last year back in August. There are 2 ways to mitigate the fragileness of a certain deck. One, if your deck has space, you can play a bunch of hand traps like spirals do, to where if I don't play, you don't play either, kind of thing. So we're just going to be back and forth until one of us is going to play. But I have powerful cards such as Spiral Tough, you know, I have Rescue and all that other stuff to recur and probably out-resource you and outpace you in the long run. So there's that. That's option number 1, is just play a bunch of hand traps if your deck can fit it, to where both players aren't playing until I'm able to play. Or option number 2, this is what I said in my very first World Chalice video. We all know that this deck right here is fragile, but because you know this, you need to be playing so many extenders to the point to where that frailness does not matter. I said that in my very first World Chalice video, and it wasn't until late in the season on the UDS when Goki players stopped playing hand traps and just started filling their deck with a bunch of extenders to push through anything and everything. And that's something that I stressed a while ago. If your deck's fragile, just play, just fill your deck with nothing but cards that is designed to just keep you pushing and keep you going until, you know, your opponent's out of interruption. So we're going to start with the obvious one being hand traps. Ash Blossoms, Joel. Well, okay, Joel Lockbird is a different evil altogether. If Joel resolves against any of these decks, you're basically done. I mean, Gokis were able to play through Joel before because of Nightmare Goblin. We kind of don't have that anymore. So, hand traps, what do you got? You got Ash Blossoms, you got your Infinite Impermanences, you got, you know, Ghost Ogres are getting played again, and all the good stuff. So, if you're getting stopped left and right, you're not gonna really have a good time, and all that good stuff. So, you know, we're gonna start with, you know, your main. Like I said, I'm referencing 3 decks. Chalice is not going to be the only one. We're doing Chalice, we're doing Gokis, and we're going to do Spirals. But I already kind of gave it away for Spirals. Just play a bunch of hand traps and all that good stuff, and you'll be good to go. And, well, yeah. So, yeah. These are your win conditions, essentially, for this deck. You want to go ahead and build the biggest board you can. Have some negates, you know, have the waterfront, you know, to access your Gamma Seal for your other negates and all that mess. And your opponent knows this. So, since your opponent knows this, your opponent is going to do everything they can to stop all this from happening. And we're talking about, you know, Ash Blossom doing World Legacy. We're talking Infinite Impermanence on a Venus. Maybe Ash or Joel to stop this 2-card combo from hitting the board and all that mess. So when you got all these hand traps and you got all these interruptions going on, you need to figure out a way to continuously push through all that. And as I said before, you need to play so many extenders to the point to where the fragileness does not matter. Look at this. You got, and to do that in this deck, you need as many ways to put normal monsters on the field as possible. Now, I didn't include starter cards in this because starter cards are a different thing altogether. So these are your extenders and starters. These right here are treated as both starters and extenders, but there are certain things that are purely for extension to keep your plays going. You know, all your typical reborn cards. Now, there are some in-deck cards in your specific deck that you can end up playing that also enables you to continue to push. Like for Spiral Mission Rescue, Spiral Assault, things like that. Things that are within your archetype that can continue to push. Or in this deck's case, where like this hard grabbing 2 monsters from grave to hand, so you can continue to summon from the hand and continue to link climb and push through anyway. But there may be some cards that don't seem like an extender, but in certain decks can act as such. Like, let's say, Foolish Burial for sending a... sometimes you'll need a Foolish Burial to send something like a Guard Dragon to the graveyard, so you can banish it to grab a vanilla to the field and continue link climbing, or to send something like a Lazuli to grab a vanilla from grave to hand, so you can continue to link summon and link climb. Things to that matter. With, you know, things like Exodius as well. You know, sometimes you may have some convoluted text in your set deck to help just continue to push and extend and all that good stuff. So, you know, the name of the game for this deck is to establish some sort of vanilla on the board. Like I said, it doesn't matter what kind of effect monsters you have. If you don't have vanillas in circulation with a deck like this, then you're not going to have a good time. So, this same thing applies to, like, let's say counter traps or like on-field negates like Vortex Dragon and things of that nature. However, with those, you have a much easier time when it comes to fixing fragile discrepancies of your set deck. So not only do you have Call by the Graves for things like hand traps, but you also have things, well, as you've seen, like Kaijus, that can out, let's say, problematic monsters like, let's say, a Trigate Wizard and all that good stuff. So it itself, you know, kaijus themselves may not be an extender, but if your deck's fragile to certain things and they have an on-field negate, this can mitigate that as well. This can also mitigate your opponent's interruptions, because the fewer interruptions your opponent has, the better. Either the fewer interruptions or the more extenders you have, either or. So in a sense like that, things like that, Forbidden Chalice, evenly matched just to eat a negate and things like that, those all count. So now that's enough of World Chalice. Now we're going to take a look at Gouki's. Gouki's, they have a much better time with this because they are fragile, because if their Summon Sword gets stopped, if their, you know, Isolde gets stopped, whatever, they can lose a lot of steam, but the deck is playing so many extenders to where they can just keep going. That's why I was saying, yes, the deck strategy itself is fragile, but you can do things to cover that. I mean, look at all these. You got, you know, your chunk forwards, your Marauding Captains, your instant fusions for your level 3 warrior guy. It doesn't even have to be level 3 anymore because, well, the Invoker build is kind of just out of there, but it's still worth noting. You know, you got Blue Mountain Butter Spies, Aqua Dolphins, and all that good stuff. Like Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, that's a warrior as well. All these extenders at a Gouki's deck's disposal, and they can play these at multiple copies apiece, because all they need to do is just put 2 warriors onto the field and access that Isolde. Now, that doesn't need to be the only way you go about it, simply for the fact that, well, you want your Isolde to resolve, you want your Summon Sorceress to resolve, and all that stuff, but you may not only have that option, but you can do things that, you know, to make it better. Things like Call by the Grave to stop your Isolde from getting hit from a certain point. But then you also got things like Magical Midbreaker Field. Magical Midbreaker Field is an excellent, it is one of the best cards to protect your fragile strategies. Even in a deck like World Chalice, I've actually considered just side decking 3 copies against, like, let's say a deck like Sky Strikers, even though I don't struggle with it because I can just kaiju over their stuff and just combo off for free. But, you know, it's worth noting because it stops, you know, not only Widowmakers, it stops, you know, Afterburners and all that stuff, especially if you, yeah, it stops Infinite Impermanence, it stops Effect Veilers, it stops many more things other than just hand traps or just like spell traps. It covers a lot more ground than you may think, and it also contributes to shielding your field from things like Torrential Tribute and things of that matter, which is also really, really huge. So Magical Midbreaker Field is an excellent tool to cover the weaknesses of your fragile deck strategy, especially if it is a heavy link-based strategy. So I definitely give it a double thumbs up for Magical Midbreaker Field in that respect. So I hope you guys learned something here. It's not really too much to really go into when it comes to fragile deck strategies, because it's like, okay, if my deck is really good when it gets going, then I just need to make sure it can keep going by just playing so many ways to keep my stuff going. And or, as I said earlier, play a bunch of hand traps to where if I don't play, you don't play either until I'm able to play. So you can do either or, guys. So I hope you guys learned something from this. I didn't really go too much into it because there's a lot of things that can be applied to other decks, like let's say Extra Link Zombies. A lot of these cards can also be used in the same deck. Like I said, any deck that is essentially really, really link heavy and wants to spam a bunch of link monsters is likely going to be fragile. So you can use all of what I just did and all of what I just said, you know, and apply it. Now, like I said, not every single link spam deck is a warrior-based deck. So things like Jump Forwards and Marauding Captains and all that stuff won't be super beneficial in every single link-based deck. You know, case in point, Zombies, you know, which they're getting a new structure deck of support and all that good stuff. Can't wait to see how that turns out. But, you know, I hope you can take this and, let's say, find something in terms of, like, let's say your own deck strategy and apply it. You know, if you know, what can I play in my deck that can keep my combos going, that can continue to extend? You know, you want to ask yourself, do I need to play hand traps in a sense? Because if you took a look at the UDS, when Goku started taking out their hand traps, the whole deal was, and I've said this many times, I don't care about stopping my opponent's plays. I only care about making sure my plays go through. Because as long as I can play Yu-Gi-Oh!, I'm going to win the game anyway, no matter what. And the Goki players were finally catching on to my mentality there, and it turned out to work for them. It could also work for you, and all that good stuff. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below regarding this. What fragile deck strategy have I not thought of yet? I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a ton out there, but I want to keep the video, you know, not too long. So yeah. So thank you guys very much for watching. This is J Money, and I am signing out.